I might just have a couple questions here. Mr. Johnson, I also come from a very much of an agriculture district, too. And farmers have often been the leaders in conservation efforts, and many times without public policies driving these practices. As part of a potential cap-and-trade scheme, I know that the NFU supports rewarding farmers who have already employed such operations. How would you respond to critics that believe giving carbon credits to so-called early actors defeats the goal of reducing the overall emissions?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. There are several responses to that. First of all, the broader that you can make the offset market, the more efficient economically your climate change legislation is going to become. Secondly, it is the early actors who really who brought us to this dance, if you will. They showed us the ways to try and figure out how to have a reduced carbon footprint. Those are the last people you want to penalize. They are the first ones that ought to be rewarded. They took a lot of risks on the front end of this thing in order to go to these adopt new technologies and new practices that have proven to be beneficial for climate change kinds of issues. So we want to be sure that we don't in any way penalize them. So there needs to be a mechanism to make sure that that happens.
Any thoughts on that mechanism?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, one of the mechanisms, first of all, the thing that I described in my testimony is that you need to pick a baseline, a static sort of a period in time in which, okay, practices that are performing after that time, you allow offsets, allow them to participate in the offset market. If they're before that time, you have to disallow. But if they're early actors before that timeline, that is really the rationale for carving out a portion of the allowances that would likely be sold in the market and allocating them back to the sector so that those revenues could be used to compensate those early actors in a fashion similarly to the folks that acted later.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
You're welcome.
Mr. McNamara, the green roofing products and services can provide small roofing firms with a way to diversify their business model. Beyond new roofs, have you found retrofitting and replacing less efficient energy products to be an increasingly important part of your business? And what has been the driver and demand for such services, if that's so?
Yeah, that has certainly been the case. You know, we've seen certainly over the last, just the 5 or 10 year period, and with everybody with increased energy costs obviously as well, continue to move towards greater levels of insulation in either projects that we specify and install ourselves or projects that we're involved with that are being specified by others. We see greater and greater levels of insulation that are provided on rooftops, and that along with other energy efficiency measures such as what I referred to before in terms of daylighting, which works with bringing in sunlight to reduce the energy requirements for electric lighting. And cool roofs or reflective roof surfaces as well have become more and more popular.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Sharp, given the recent volatility in energy, many large entities have taken steps to reduce their energy consumption and ultimately the greenhouse gas emissions. However, for many small firms, these investments remain out of reach. Can you talk about the type of clients that purchase your technologies?
A lot of the clients, we tend to work with larger facilities. Yeah, sorry. We tend to work with larger facilities, which tend to be sort of universities, colleges, as well as corporations and things of that nature. So, but we do get down into small businesses as well who have larger facilities. And to that extent, the paybacks involved with this type of technology are relevant to them as well. So that is a very appropriate use of funds, and in reality, it becomes a major financial investment that pays off at excellent rates. So it's a good investment for them. So it's really not out of reach of them. It really is able to be achieved, and it may require some financing, but they're easy to finance based on the paybacks.
So obviously, as the prices come down, more and more small firms are going to.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of the technology is still is within reach now. I mean, a lot of the obviously there's a range of different investments people can make in different types of energy solutions, but there's a lot of very low cost or no cost things that people can do, as well as things that have excellent paybacks in the 1 to 5 year period, which is obviously good business to invest in.
And Mr. Kavanaugh, can you just maybe expand a little bit on the R&D opportunities out there for small businesses, as you were talking about the CO2 emissions,
Sure.
and what you see happening right now and where you see that can go?
Okay, thank you. Right now, we're engaged in research projects to develop ways of making steel that don't emit CO2, and that means replacing carbon as a fuel. So that means using green electricity, using hydrogen, alternatives like that. So that research now is going on at Massachusetts Institute of Technology and University of Utah. And around such technology centers as those two universities are small, independent, but really excellent technology companies that we pull in to solve the technical problems as the research advances. And then what happens is, as the market for these technologies grow and they become closer to commercial use, and then in commercial use, those companies that have helped in the development, they also grow and they provide jobs, and then the technology becomes pervasive regionally and then nationally. So that's how the research infrastructure in our industry and many others works, and how it supports new small business. Obviously, the steel industry, as it exists now, has a very robust small business infrastructure that, as long as we're healthy, they're healthy. So it works on two levels.
Okay, thank you very much.